There's a common misconception that you can't let your knees go in front of your toes. Okay? Why do you think people say that? How many have heard that? You're not supposed to let your knees go forward. Okay, there's really no evidence of that. Okay, it does put more stress, but there's no evidence it's going to tear your knee up. In fact, there's been quite a few studies. If you progress in a reasonable manner, that's not going to hurt your knees. But here's what I want you to think about. Let's say that Keith is trying to keep his knees back. You're going to have to lean, okay, as you go down. To keep his knees back, he's got to lean more forward as he goes down. So where does the stress go if you take it off your knees? Right there, okay? So you're not really saving a whole lot by doing that. Plus, it's just not you might call it a not so natural movement. It's not a good idea to do that, okay? Another thing that you'll often find, and Keith can, if you'll demonstrate this, is people that will squat and for some reason their heel comes up. So they start squatting, and often they lean as they do it, okay? So you'll see something like that. And you ask them to keep their heels down, and they can't do it. At least they think they can't do it. Anybody ever run into that? Okay, how do you solve that? Well, here's one way. So let's say that, for example, that occurs. And so one way to convince them, you say, okay, get down, you know, as they descend, they get to a point and all of a sudden their heels come up and they say, I just can't go any lower, I can't get any lower. Or they'll say, I just can't get lower, you know, I just can't do it, I can't do it. Well, a good way to convince them that they can do it is just, for example, can I use you for the guinea pig? Why don't you come up, and all I want you to do is just go sit on that bench over there. See the bench, that little bench right there? Yeah. And so you have them sit there for a little while, okay, and then you do something else, and you come back and you say, okay, come over here. She just did it, okay. Everybody see that. She sat down, she went down further. So all the time people say, that's as far as I can go. I just can't go any further. Then you ask them to sit down, and they do it. And all of a sudden they find out, yeah, I can get down there. And so you begin to convince they can. So if their feet are coming up, though, one of the things that you can do is you can put a block under it, okay, and that will help them sit up. And then over a period of time, you can lower the block. So that's one way. The other thing that you can do if you don't have access, you can ask them to start spreading their feet out. This is not necessarily the best way to do it, but you will find out that they can squat if they spread their feet out, and they can keep their heels down, and then slowly you start narrowing their feet over a period of time. Okay, anybody have any questions about anything we've covered so far?
Do you think
you in the black.
Toe was like more for half squats?
Do what?
Like the knees over the toes. Do you think maybe that originated more for half squats? Because if you're going down not as far, is it okay to still put your knees over your toes?
Oh, that's what I'm saying. You should put your knees over your toes.
Even whenever you're just doing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah. I mean, that's the natural movement. It's for your knee to go ahead of your toe.
So I think that came from trying to keep your heels on the ground, because if you really let your knees go real far, your heels.
Well, it comes from an old idea that if you let your knees go forward, it puts more stress on the patellar ligaments and so on, and that you have more problems as a result of that. If you simply look at it biomechanically, that's true. There is more stress there. But what they fail to realize is that the process of adaptation. And that if you apply stresses correctly over a period of time, you don't cause damage. And that you can adapt to the movement. And they also fail to realize that if you do that, if you keep your knees back, again, all the stress ends up on your lower back. Well, I'd rather have it on my knees if I had to have stress somewhere. Okay, in fact, the object of this is to, in fact, the object of keeping straight up down is to remove some of the stress from your lower back. And you can't stay straight up down if you keep your knees back. And if you do front squats, I don't care what you do, you can't keep your knees back. And we're about to do those right now.